Married at First Sight. We're going to call this Fish Fry Friday because something smells a little fishy. I don't know, but we're going to talk about it anyway. So I don't know if you all know, but Myrla from last season did an interview with Tamara Tattle Tales. And I don't know why she did the interview because, I mean, wasn't this like a source of a lot of hurt and pain? And I mean, really, we really were all off of it. We're not even talking about it anymore. So I don't know why she would want to like open up this old wound, because there were a lot of strong opinions about Myrla and Gil. And so I'm not for sure why she'd want to talk about it again. I guess maybe she felt she never got her opinion out or something. I don't know. Maybe she's about to come out with something new, and so she wants to sort of revive the chatter around her. So I'm gonna revive it. Let's revive it, Myrla. We can revive it. You know, Tamara, sorry if I messed her name. Tamara, really, she did a good job. I think she asked a lot of the questions that people had a year ago. And so, you know, we finally got the answer, I guess. So let me tell you what I think about it all. So first of all, I want to say that I do not believe that Gil was prepared for marriage financially. Hear me. I do not believe that Gil was prepared for marriage financially. But I also do not believe that Myrla was prepared for marriage mentally. They both were ill prepared. And depending on which one you believe is most important, the financial or the mentally preparation, might determine were you team Gil or team Myrla. But honestly, I'm going to tell you, they both were sorely ill prepared for marriage in two different categories. So first of all, this is actually a good like sort of plug for my series I'm doing on how to get married in a year. And we're kind of talking about marriage. And Gil and Myrla, to me, were the perfect example of that's not what marriage is. I have a lot of people who say they want marriage, and then when they start describing what they want, I say, you know what? Nothing's wrong with what you want. It's just not marriage. Like what you're describing isn't marriage. In my series, my first video, I'll put that link below too, I say, you know, it's kind of likened to a person telling me, I want a new car. And I go, oh, that's cool, you want a new car. And then they tell me, so I'm going down to Target to get a new car. And I say, well, Target doesn't sell cars. That's not where you go to buy cars. And I hear a lot of people say what they want, but then I say, but that's not marriage. And that's a lot of what I hear from Myrla. Nothing's wrong with what Myrla wants. It's just that it's not marriage. So I don't know where she goes from here. One thing I say about marriage is happiness cannot be the goal or everything you want from marriage. If you are only in marriage for happiness, you will not make it. You will not survive marriage. You will not enjoy marriage. More than likely, you'll end in divorce. Because although people do get married because they want to have some more happiness in their life, or they want to have happiness, they also get married because of love. But there's another part of marriage that is really prominent, which is commitment. And in commitment, there's also duty. There's duty and commitment. Marriage is an institution. It is not about self-pleasure. So if you are going into marriage and you put the happiness or the self-pleasure too high in the equation, more than likely you'll be a person that ends up getting divorced. I understand what Myrla wanted from marriage. And I understand when she got married at first sight, she had a set of core things that she wanted. Upon getting married, she discovered that she didn't have all the things that she wanted, and thus she was unhappy. Would I have recommended, if Myrla was my girlfriend and she was just dating Gil and she started telling me about his financial situation, would I have suggested to Myrla to marry Gil in that moment in time? I probably would have said, no, not even probably, I would have said no, adamantly. He's not prepared financially for marriage, and maybe his primary focus should be on something else right now and not marriage. But that wasn't the situation that Myrla went in. What Myrla went in is she went into an experiment and she was already married. So now the equation isn't should she get married to Gil? She was already married to Gil. Now the question became, should she divorce Gil over what she's discovered? 5 years ago, maybe it's a little longer than 5 years, my husband got diagnosed with cancer. If someone were to come to me and say, hey, I'm dating this guy, he has cancer, and he's going to have to go through almost a year of chemotherapy, radiation, and treatment. Should we get married? Absolutely not. You should not get married during that time. I would tell that friend no. But I was already married to my husband, just like Myrla was already married. Now, if I were to come here and tell you, oh, I got married, I didn't sign up for cancer, that's not what I wanted to be happy. My life isn't going to be happy for a whole year. So my husband got diagnosed with cancer, so I'm going to divorce him because this is not the environment I want to be in for this year. Y'all would say I was crazy. You would say I was selfish. You would say I was mean. Because who does that? Who divorces their husband because he got cancer? Now, I know many of you would say, well, Gil knew he had bad finances. He did. But remember, Myrla was already married to him. So this is when marriage kicks in. Because marriage duty commitment kicks in, because now that you're married, part of the commitment is you're saying, now that we're faced with this problem, even though it isn't what I would have chosen, we have the duty and we're committed to fixing it. Now, some people call that struggle love. They say, oh, well, you're not supposed to get married and have to struggle in marriage. You know, this is the same thing about this whole pick-me-sha. You know, I don't really know what people think marriage is. Marriage isn't one big struggle. Absolutely, it's not. But to think that you're not going to have any struggles in marriage, I mean, is really, really unrealistic. Marriage is a long-term investment. It's not a short-term investment. You really can't value marriage based on one particular moment in time within the first year or 2 years or 3 years. That's not even where the value of marriage comes from. The value of marriage comes from the longevity of the marriage, long term. It's like buying a house. If you only plan to live in a house for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, I tell everybody, don't buy the house. If you're only planning to be here for less than 5 years, you should not be buying a house. You should be renting. And that's the same thing about marriage. If you're only in marriage for the happiness and you don't want to have any struggles, you should not get married. You should just rent. You should just date. Then that way, when the struggles come, you can just break up and then you can go on to the next person and have a good 2 years without any struggles and then move on to the next person. That's what serial dating is. If you're not ready to stick through those tough times, no matter what stage they come in your marriage, year 1, year 5, year 10, you should not get married. You know, when people bought houses, the reason they invested in houses, because what they said was, I'm going to pay this mortgage payment for 20 years. Then after 20 years, I'm never going to have a mortgage. I'm basically going to live rent-free, mortgage-free, because I put in 20 years and now I'm going to have these great benefits of doing that. The benefits of home ownership aren't all in the first year or 2 years or 3 years. The benefits of marriage don't always come in the first year or the second year. Sometimes you are investing. You find a lot of people who don't understand this concept, and it's also how they live their life. You know, people lease cars their whole life. And I say, why are you leasing? Why don't you buy a car and then have a good 8-9 years of no lease payment? That's when you start really enjoying the car, when you riding around in a car and you ain't got to pay nothing for it. Marriage is not static. It's dynamic. So even if you found a man with perfect conditions here on day one, and you said, oh, this man is perfect for me. Well, guess what? Marriage isn't static. In 5 years, that man could change, which means what? Now you're unhappy? Marriage is dynamic. You are not committing to a moment in time with marriage. You are committing to a journey. How would you feel if a man only committed to your physical body right now, ladies? What if he said, I'll only stay married to you as long as you are physically the way you look now? And then after you know what? After 5 years or 10 years, you look different, I'm divorcing you. The reason I say Gil was not prepared for marriage financially is because one of the things that Tamara Tattle broke down in the video was a better picture of his financial situation. She did a really good job with breaking down the numbers. And basically it came down to what Myrla's main problem was, which is not, I understand the problem, was that Gil didn't have any savings, which was one. And it looks like Gil was an overspender and an undersaver. It was revealed that the money Gil talked about having in Colombia was really money he had sent to Colombia over time. And this part I kind of understand a little bit more, especially with him being I think he's first generation immigrant. As you guys know, I am in real estate investing, and I rented to people who were first generation immigrants. And let me tell you, a lot of immigrants send a lot of money back home. This may not be something that we understand as Americans, but you know what? I kind of liken it almost to a form of child support, of alimony. You often find, you meet women, and when you meet them, they already have a child or 2 children. And even though that man may make, $60, $70, $80, $100,000, when you look at his net salary, it's less because he has to send money every single month out of that check to those kids. And sometimes with immigrants, that's the same thing that's going on. I have rented to people who have had good salaries, and I often wonder why they're renting my apartment, because they actually can afford more based on their salary. But when I saw their bank statements and I saw where their money was going, I started to realize that a lot of immigrants are sometimes sending $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 a month back to families in other countries, sometimes to support siblings and parents and whole households back there. So it really changes the dynamics of their financial situation. As we know, Gil was a firefighter, and he had only been doing that for, I think, like 6 months. And his salary was pretty much, public record. So we're guessing he made somewhere between $45,000 and $60,000 a year. Myrla cleared up the fact that she does make way more than Gil. It wasn't just the $100 he talked about. She basically said she didn't want to address it on TV, but that it wasn't true. And I actually believe Myrla. I believe she made more money. Do I believe she made $300,000 like people were saying? No, I don't believe that, because if she made $300,000, then I would be talking to her about why she only had $40,000 in savings. Because if you make that much money, you should have had way more in savings. So I don't think she made that type of money, but I do believe that she made more than Gil. And I don't think it was just $100 more. I think it was probably tens of $1,000s more than Gil. Myrla went on to say that now she is a partner with a nonprofit, so of course her salary has gone up. And of course we know that Gil actually has gone on from being a firefighter or something to now he's actually trying to move up in the ranks within his field. And so I would imagine he's moving up to make more money. One of the things he said, the reason why he went to that field was because personal training was not a stable income. It was, here and there, hit and miss, and he wanted something more stable. One of the reasons why I say Myrla wasn't mentally prepared for marriage, because basically what they were dealing with was, to me, what I call sort of a math problem and a roles problem in marriage. One of the things I hear underlining with Myrla was the fact that she felt that Gil was irresponsible with money. She felt that he didn't have the skill level to handle money, and that made her feel uncomfortable. It made her not feel safe with him. And I actually can understand and agree with all those things. Now, here's where Myrla and I differ a bit. I do not believe that everyone comes into marriage with the same talents. And I do not believe that men are just naturally better with money than women. I don't. And in fact, if you look at a lot of households, marital households, talk to married women, a good portion of women, including myself, we are the ones that actually handle the day-to-day finances. And let me tell you, that doesn't mean I pay all the bills. What I'm telling you is that the actual bill writing, going out, doing that, a lot of women handle the books. A lot of men are really comfortable, husbands are really comfortable with taking their paychecks, keeping a little bit back for themselves for their little money they spend each month, incidental, whatever you want to call it, they stipend, allowance, whatever you want to call it, and then transferring the other money to another account, and then someone else goes into that account and they write out the bills and pay all the bills. You don't find households where two couples sit down and they equally are writing out or going online and paying the bills. It's typically one person or another. And let me tell you, increasingly it's women. And I think it's because women are more detailed. I think it's one of the reasons why women handle finances and families more. And another thing is, to be honest with you, there's another part of the male pride ego where they think of things like paying bills, light bill, gas bill, cable bill. They think it's tedious. They think it's frivolous. They think, oh, you know what? I have so many other big things to do. I don't want to get bogged down by that. And you know what? That actually is my husband. My husband would rather turn his paycheck over than to have to sit down and actually go through and pay a light bill, a gas bill, a cable bill, and all these types of things. When you are in marriage, to think that you are always going to come with the same skill level is really just wishful thinking. What I do in my household is first we look at desire. When we have tasks or roles in the house, we first ask, do you like doing that naturally, or do I like doing that naturally? And if you don't like doing it naturally, then you start going to, okay, who's actually better at it? Who's better at it? Who has the best track record? And when it came to Myrla and Gil, it was quite obvious that she had a better track record. She was better at handling money. So in terms of their solution, to me, I don't know if divorce needed to be the solution. I'm wondering, why couldn't Myrla just sort of say, hey, I don't trust you to save enough to do this right now. Maybe down the line in marriage, I will be able to trust you with that. But in the meantime, I want to take a bigger role in paying and putting money away for savings because I have the track record. I think if Myrla would have come with that, I think Gil would have absolutely committed to it. It may not be what he wanted maybe long term, but listen, when you are trying to save a marriage, this is when the compromise comes in place. Myrla gets something that will make her a little bit more comfortable, and then Gil might have to give up a little bit of his comfortableness in order to come to the middle. That is the compromise. One of the things that Myrla said, which I also say why she wasn't ready, was because she said, oh, she can compromise, but she didn't want to compromise on core values. She only wanted to compromise on small things. And one of the examples she said of small things was, small things is like, hey, I want to go to Paris, you want to go to Germany. So why don't we go to both? That's not compromise, Myrla. Compromise is when you give up something and I give up something and we come together for the pleasure of the group. When you say you want to go to Paris, I want to go to Germany, we go to both, nobody gave up anything. Those aren't the compromises going on in marriage, because typically you don't have the ability to do both. When you want a couch for your house and you only can buy one couch for the den, you can't say, oh, you buy your couch, I buy my couch. No, the compromise going on in the house is what couch do we buy? We have to come together on one solution. So even in her example of what compromise is, that's not even compromise. That's not even marriage. I really wish they would have been able to work this out. One of the examples in the Tamara Tattles was she put up the whole financial chart of the bills, and Gil didn't have any savings. He did, and what was happening was Myrla was floating money for Gil, and then Gil in 2 or 3 weeks was paying back Myrla, and that made Myrla uncomfortable, which I completely understand. That's why I'm saying that in the beginning, he was not prepared financially for marriage. But here was the short-sightedness of Myrla. They were going to move into an apartment that was going to be $2,000. Myrla was already renting an apartment for $1,800 all by herself. So when they were going to move into this $2,000 apartment, Myrla was not only going to have to keep paying her $1,800 apartment until the lease ran out for another 6 months, she was also going to have to kick in this $1,000, her half, for the new apartment. So Myrla has been paying $1,800, but after, the 5 or 6 months, she was going to be able to pay only $1,000. So she was going to be able to save at least at minimum $900 a month, basically $1,000 a month. At the end of the year, Myrla's savings would have grown by $12,000. Now, Gil was living in a less expensive apartment. I believe at the time he was only paying $1,200 or $1,300 for his apartment. He was going to now move into the apartment and only pay $1,000 a month. So he too was going to save not as much as Myrla, but just on that alone, he would have saved $300 a month. So that's another $3,600 or close to $4,000 a year coming back into the household. So between Myrla's $12,000 and Gil's $4,000, they as a couple would have saved an additional $16,000 a year. All these vacations Myrla was talking about, $16,000 could have bought all those vacations. This is the short-sightedness of Myrla, and she made a decision based on the moment in time, and she didn't make a decision based on a longer-term investment. I would ponder to say that now that Myrla's making more money, now that Gil's making more money, had she put Gil on a budget and a savings plan and had a little bit more hand in that, the two of them together would have been so much well off together. And that's what marriage is about. It's about working together for a greater good. So although there would have been a sacrifice by Myrla early on, the sacrifice would have paid off way more dividends after a year. And another part, I don't think Myrla did give enough credit to Gil's pension that he was creating in the fire department, because that is huge. That is valuable. Most of us that don't have pensions, we have to take money out of our salaries and put it in a 401k or another retirement account so that by the time we are retired, we have money. But when you have a job that's a pension that are now sort of outdated and gone, teachers still have them, firefighters still have them, civil servants still have them. Let me tell you, what they do is valuable. What they do is they are contributing to your pension on top of your salary, so that at the end of 20 years, you have not really even had to take as much additional money out of your check to put towards retirement, because they are doing it for you. My mother was a teacher for 35 years, and she has a teacher's pension. My mother's salary today is higher than the salaries of some people who are working 9 to 5s today, because you know what? Her teacher pension has provided that. That is very valuable, that at the end of your career, you can be earning the same amount of money that you earned when you were working. I'm going to tell you, in 20 years, I'm not sure Myrla can outsave Gil's pension. You should see the pensions of these firefighters. In fact, they're trying to rein them in, because some of these firefighters are earning way more money in retirement than they even earned when they were working. Myrla was being short-sighted in her calculation of money, and it makes me think she may not be as good as money as good as money as she thinks. She's better than Gil, but that doesn't mean she's good at it.